Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Reverend No Shorty, and today we're going to be looking at Storm, which is yet another one of the X-Men Marvel From the Ashes things. And if you're wondering why I just keep doing all of them, it's because, well, two reasons. Number one, they're quite good fun, I quite enjoy them. And number two, my mum didn't raise no quitter. I started, I'm going to finish it no matter what's coming, and they have almost universally been fantastic for me. There's been like one notable of them, but I've got to be 100% honest, I wasn't going into this one with particularly high expectations. Two reasons for that. Number one, the last time I read a Storm solo series, it was really vibing off like the mid to late 90s kind of vibe, and I was big into the X-Men back then because I was a teenager, and it was cool to be into the X-Men, and they were so edgy, and man, you'd look at stuff that's inspired by that writing style now, and think about the stuff I used to read and spend way too much money on, and I'm not proud of who I was. So I didn't have high expectations for a Storm book. Throw into the mix, I also don't really know much by these two main creators. This is not a criticism of them, but I just don't really read much that they've done. We have Muriwa Ayodele, apologies for mispronouncing that one, on writing duty, and Lucas Wernick on art. And just because I don't really know much about them isn't a reason to dismiss them at all. They could be fantastic, but when you don't really have an expectation, and I don't know, maybe because everything else has been a bit better than I expected, I kind of thought maybe this is going to be another one of those that I'll like just brush over it, and it'll be a shame that there's not like across the board fantastic X-Men stories. But this one did impress me for a number of reasons. It also had some issues, like it's not a perfect thing going on here. I'll deal with the bad stuff later on, though. Let's actually concentrate on the stuff that I like first, because the writing straight out the gate impressed me. I've said before, usually talking about Ramvi and his poetic style, that it's worth reading stuff out loud to get a sense of what it actually is, like how good it is. Because comic books, even stuff written down, they are still usually people talking or thoughts expressed, and if you're not doing that in a way which is vocalizable in a way that makes sense and flow, then you're not really getting it quite right. In this case, not only is it really well written, the intro in particular, but it's clearly written by someone who understands how speeches work. Not in case of writing a good speech, which is its own skill, don't get me wrong, people very, very good at that kind of thing who do exist out there and work politicians, but it also understands how the speech would be given. There is cadence to it, there is rises and falls, there's breaks where there needs to be. It builds up this sense of expectation really, really effectively. Throughout the rest of the book, the writing does the same kind of thing. There's some fantastic action sequences where it allows itself to rise and fall through it. It intersperses out with some really good ideas on what it means to be a hero and how you struggle against problems. And also, just in terms of action, really flows quite nicely. But the thing that I really like about it is, in the way I've done with almost all of the From the Ashes stuff, with Wolverine notwithstanding, I've liked the fact that it's looked at real-world marginalised individuals and groups and basically tried to show the X-Men as being a version of those in the Marvel Universe. With Storm being a literal goddess, apparently, and also ex-Queen of Wakanda and an X-Men and an Avenger, she is one of those, like, ones can be upheld. She's one of the good ones, and when I say that, I hope everyone understood the air quotes there. And this story could have gone along those lines. It would have been quite easy to. It feels like it was set up to have done that. But Dazzler already did that, so they go a different way here. And instead of looking at this idea that maybe if there's enough good ones, then they will lift up everyone, which never really works, because that's not how the conservative mindset works. You're allowed to have a few people from the out-group go into the in-group as long as they play the rules, but it still means there is an out-group. That is an essential part of conservatism. Fascism even more so. In this particular case, we see the opposite of that come into play writ large, which is the idea that although there might be some people who are allowed into the in-group because they exemplify the best qualities of the in-group while being part of the out-group, all it takes is one person in the out-group to do something bad, and then everyone is tainted by the same brush. It is very much a two-sided kind of thing, and it exists in the real world throughout. You're allowed some good... I'll use an example here of Muslims, simply because there's always the whole terrorism thing which people bring up, even though more terrorism is done by white people. But it doesn't matter how many of the good ones there are, all it takes is a couple of bad ones and that'll go the other way. This one, it does it in a really big, bombastic, over-the-top X-Men kind of way, and it isn't necessarily a mutant doing a bad thing on purpose, but still a bad thing happens, and that's enough to tar everyone who also carries the X gene. It's really well done, the pacing is fantastic, and I really, really enjoyed that. The art is its let down, and not in a major way, because the art is really impressive when it's doing big, bold things, and that's fine when you're writing an X-Men comic book. It is big and bombastic by necessity. It really works, especially when you're dealing with Storm going off and saving things and being an ambassador for an entire people. She is amazing. And when they do huge things, splash pages and dramatic action and all that kind of stuff, it looks brilliant, but it doesn't quite work on the slow moments. And I've been reading some books with some great slow moments, like Deviant just having two people sat in a dark room talking to each other. It feels like the artist for this one didn't get the memorandum that occasionally you'll need to drop it down a little bit, and it just feels overdone for things where it doesn't need to be overdone for. And it's a bit of a shame, because other than that, like, really, really good artwork. Maybe a touch of the over-colouring a little bit, that's a Marvel thing rather than an individual creator thing. Overall, really enjoyable, and so far, still very, very much above average for all of the From the Ashes stuff. Anyway, that's it for now. There's a whole bunch to review this week, though. I've got literally like 3 things just so I will pull this, I'm going to be doing a reviewing. So if you don't want to miss out on anything, make sure you do the social media thing. You know where to find me by now. Until I see you all again, though, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye!